Om Ganganapate Namaha, Om Gangurabhyo Namaha, Om Aim Saraswatyay Namaha, Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vishnudevanandaya, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvashavahai, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for coming to this workshop. I see many of you. I know some of you I don't know. You're all welcome. This is a little workshop in the honor of the great birth of the divine called Jesus the Christ. And so traditionally, with Trey at least, with my boss here, who is hiding someplace, we'd come together. I do a talk on the teachings of Jesus from the yoga perspective. So I hope you will enjoy it. So the first thing to remind you that this is rather a very important spiritual um, um, incident or event, and we should look at it in that way. Of course, over the time, especially in the West, Christmas has become everything but what it's supposed to be. It's a lot more about shopping, marketing, trying to sell as much as possible, being, in a frantic mood to get all the gifts for your friends and everybody, which is really wonderful in a sense, because there should be the giving is an act of love, and we should be giving, but we also have to remember that the days leading to the birth of the Christ, and also on the day itself, fundamentally one of the most profound times in the whole year that we should take a big advantage of. So first of all, I want to remind you that a non-cut tree that could represent the Christmas tree is also an important symbol, not just from the Christian point of view, but also from the yogic point of view. And this is that if you really look at the tree symbolizes many things. Maybe some of you already know. The tree is the tree of life. It represents the creation, or we call it the Prakriti in our teachings. And also by meditating on the nature of creation as being pervaded by the Lord, we also connect with the Lord himself. So usually we hang different things, different symbols, but traditionally we will hang little things that resemble planets, resemble stars, little angels in high astral worlds and much higher mental worlds and so on. Then we have little tinsel. You remember the tinsel? So the tinsel represents the galactic paths, the illumination, the streams of vibrant energy. So all these things are symbols. However, for majority of people, a Christmas tree is just something shiny and beautiful. And, it's important to be in the house. And I get it. And I'm only saying, if possible, if you want to have a Christmas tree, buy the potted one so that you can put the tree back in the nature, and the nature will be very happy with you, and the tree will be very happy with you. But we have to look at all the things that surround the Christmas as an important time. So my first focus would be simply to try to explain Jesus' name, right? So the Christ actually is not Jesus' last name, as people may think. It's rather, it's like a proclamation of the chosen one. So the Christ comes from the Greek word Christos, which means the anointed one or the chosen one. This Greek word has an equivalent in Hebrew, which is Mashiach, and which actually means Messiah in our language. And so there's a lot to be said about the actual idea of anointment, because the name Jesus was given by the Lord to Mary and by the angel Gabriel, according to the Gospels of Luke. And Christ and his title signifying that Jesus was sent from God to be a king and deliverer of all beings. So this is the idea. Jesus Christ means Jesus the Messiah, or Jesus the anointed one. In anointment in the Middle East had the same idea of initiation that we have in yoga and different, different traditions within India and Hinduism. And basically, in ancient Israel, if somebody was given a position of authority, oil was poured on his or her head, signifying he is being set apart for God's service. So it is how would I say, an act of dignifying somebody, making somebody come to the level of being the authority. And this is a symbolic act. So the anointed may mean that physically that somebody has been anointed, or is simply that somebody has been consecrated for a very special work. And that's what the Christ was. I will take another look at the word Christ from the analysis of Sanskrit verbal roots. And one is that the Jesus can be divided into J and Sus. And J represents the victory, which is equivalent to it is Jaya in Sanskrit. And Sus means surrender. And the name Christ has two parts to it. Kri means love, which is generally blended with service. And the next one is St, which represents the bliss. So the bliss and love, or you can say love, light, and bliss all together. So the meaning of this would be the salvation, which is J, is attained through surrender, through Sus aspect, to the reality or to God, who is the embodiment of these three principles, which is light, love, light, and bliss. So whichever way we look at just the name of Jesus, it's quite special. For many of you, you know that there's a correlation between the name Krishna and also Christ. In fact, in Greek language, we say Christos, which is very similar to Krishna in some ways. And in the word Krishna, Krish means many things, but one of them is it also means that which attracts. Akarshati iti Krishnaha, so the Krishna is that which attracts. What attracts is the divine love. So Na in Krishna means the bliss. It's the same bliss that you find in Christ's name as the last two letters, ST, right? So the correlation, some people may think it's an accidental thing. For yogis, we believe that it's not quite an accidental thing. I think it's quite special because both of these incarnations of God are taught the same thing, and that is they were doing the same thing. They were setting up, resetting the values of dharma. And on the other hand, they were bringing the idea of bhakti, a devotion to God as a way of attaining God, and many other things, of course. But this is just in simple words to say. Now, when we think of the many words that we find in Christianity that are derived from Hebrew, and they have some translations in Greek. They also have some correlation with Sanskrit because a lot of the words in Greek come from Sanskrit. And one of the words that we find is, for example, Abraham, right? Abraham, which is called the Heavenly Father, or it's actually has the same root as the word Brahman. Now, for us, Brahman is the father of whom the Jesus spoke very often as something that it was not attainable, but through him, meaning through love. And Abraham, the word by itself means the first part, age, means the father. And the second one, which is the Raham, means the multitude. So the father of multitudes. So you can say that reality from which the multitudes come from. So anyway, a little bit of scholarly work needs to be addressed here. I am not necessarily a scholar on Christianity, or I wouldn't lay my claim on it, but I do try to look at his teaching and everything that he's done as a teaching of Vedanta, and I will share some of it with you, and I hope you will enjoy it. So each year, on the December 25th, the Christians especially celebrate the birth of Jesus. we call it a Christmas. So, of course, there is no proof that Jesus was born on the 25th of December, not even that he was born in the wintertime. We cannot be completely certain about this. But just like with very special events in the history of humanity and even the whole creation, we have this Christmas, we have Easter, we have some positional dates in the calendar that leads us to understand that these events must be primarily identified and understood, interpreted symbolically. So why do we, in the first place, why do we celebrate Christmas in the beginning of the winter? So yesterday was a solstice. I hope some of you enjoyed, looking at the sky if you were there somewhere to see it. You see, the Christmas, the idea of a Christmas, the winter Christmas the answer can be found in the book of nature. Why and how? We think about how nature goes and transitions through different seasons, right? So we have a peak of the summer, then we have a fall coming. And in the fall, we find that everything starts to contract gradually and until we have the winter, and all life that is going to remanifest in springtime begins with the seed that is buried in the darkness of the earth or in the wintertime. So the winter is the season when a long work of germination is carried out. And then in the spring, that process ends in the spring with the birth of multitudes of new existences. So, thinking that everything that takes place on a physical plane also takes place on the astral plane or psychic plane or the plane of the mind or the plane of the spirit, meaning here, not the ultimate Atma, that cannot be, no plane for that. But we can think about that every physical phenomena has a replica in the mind. Even we can consider this modern time of coronavirus having some correlation with the mind, positive and negative. Since it's bringing some suffering, it must be also negative, but it also has some positive side to it. In a way, this coronavirus has brought about something that we may say similar to pralaya, which is the Sanskrit term for dissolution. Of course, not pralaya, but laya means dissolution, meaning the ending of particular forms that are not of use anymore in creation. And now they've been replaced by a new beginning, which probably began yesterday, if we were to think of it in the most wonderful way. So what is actually happening in the psyche is that just as in a dark earth, there's a seed. So similarly, we have a lower and higher nature. And so in the dark earth of one's, human's nature, there is also the seed of the divine self. And that self is called the Christ. That seed of transformation, of change, of desire to serve, to generate love, to really expand, will reach its own culmination in spring and summer, spiritually speaking or psychically speaking. So it is this event that the Christmas celebrate on the Christmas Eve. Right. So you can say it is at night, midnight, or whatever. Why is it midnight? Because it is at this time that there is the most profound darkness that in which the birth takes place. So this is why, in spite of the cold and dark and sometimes dreary kind of looking winter, you find that Christmas, is also considered to be the festival of light. And this is why people love to decorate everything, and they love that everything is bright, the songs are sung, and everything's, celebrating the birth of new consciousness, right? So looking from a perspective of the historic history, we know that Christ was born to very humble parents, poor parents, and he was born at the pitch of darkness at midnight in the same way as Lord Krishna was born. For those people who know, Lord Krishna was born exactly at the same time at midnight and hidden from the knowledge of ordinary common people that could probably potentially harm that process of unfoldment. So there's so many interesting parallels here that we can find, but I'll stick to the story of Jesus for tonight, so I don't go off on some tangent talking about other incarnations, which I love to do. So this birth in itself, in fact, every event in a sage's life, or especially in the life of Jesus, who was not just a sage, every event in his life was representative of certain in collective principle or archetypical principle from a spiritual point of view, so that everything that he lived up to the very last moment of crucifixion, every one of these events is the teaching in itself, right? So the only thing is that we need to have the right way, right instrument. We have to look at these events through the prism of symbolism rather than to just, worry about some details of some other kind that are not necessary for us. So the birth in the manger is the birth of a spiritual aspirant who has to develop that humility, has to have that gentleness, the softness and sweetness. And this is exactly presented by also nativity. I'm sure many of you have nativity at home. So nativity also presents the birth of little Jesus. So when you look at that, how sweetly he was cared by, and the animals were there and his parents were there. So that has to be found only in a profound humility. The two things that we have to have as aspirants, not as human beings only. And one is that we have to try to develop profound humility, and we have to have profound mercy. Both of these qualities were embodied in Jesus' character and in Jesus' life. His humility was so beautiful that Jesus never, he did not have doctorates or BA or PhDs, or he could not lay his, claim on any of these kind of things that the modern scholarship can indicate. And yet he did speak from a depth of his being, right? So Swami Shivananda says something very beautifully. He did not even indulge in some high-flown oratory. What Jesus did, he spoke very few words, very pitiful, very aphoristic, sometimes very difficult to understand, and those with a few words followed by silence. He never spoke sort of a long story. Everything was like a sutra that we find in a Hindu system of presentation, of aphoristic presentation of different ideas, compacted with meaning. So also his teachings are like that. We find a very interesting phenomena, and that is that many people who study Gospels and they study different things, they're not able to actually understand what he's trying to say, exactly because his manner of speaking is very metaphorical, very Middle Eastern and Eastern in essence. It's like every saying of his was a koan that you had to solve. And the reason for this kind of a way of teaching is, first of all, he was highly enlightened. And sometimes for the highest enlightened people, they speak in the form of compacted, condensed meanings rather than in elaborate kind of, things. He never wrote any books or nothing like that. And yet, the important thing is whatever he has said has affected trillions and trillions of people, generations to come. And the reason why that happened, as Swami Shivananda says, I will just share it with you. When he spoke, right, his sayings were short and pithy, but his words were vibrant with an extraordinary power that was not of this world. And the words of Jesus were vital and a flame, right? So the one who would hear them, these words would be burnt literally into the consciousness of those people who were lucky enough to hear him. We can only imagine if we were to listen to Beatitudes or something like this, like now, how impactful that speech would be when people, even 2,000 years after he spoke these words, still contemplate the meaning, still start to live according to the words. And we do need to remember one thing, that Jesus himself never wrote anything, right? There were no written data that in regards to the Gospels or any of his teachings. It only came some generations after he was crucified. And this is amazing. There were disciples, right, who must have been clairvoyant or had some photographic memory to be putting down exactly the order of the words and the way that he was saying. And this just goes to say, when the incarnation, the divine incarnation comes down, the impact that it makes, the signature that it leaves, it's indelible, right? It's like a Sadguru speaking. Whatever that person may say, even in jest, is going to have a profound effect on you. Now the question is, where does this power come from? And Swami Shivananda says very beautifully that his words come from the depths, of limitless love and infinite compassion for all that lives. This is how he lived. So it is quite amazing that many of his words were misunderstood, mutilated, you know, chopped and clipped and all that. They will always say, Jesus said this, Jesus said that, to serve certain people's or institutions' interest, and yet the essence survived. Why? Because this essence of the words that Jesus spoke comes from the eternal being. It doesn't come from any place, not from the news, not from a media, nothing like that. You cannot Google this experience. This is not possible. This experience is the ultimate of what the deepest of the deepest love can do it. So in my heart, and I follow Shivananda's tradition, Shivananda spoke so beautifully about Jesus. Every time, there was one of the few ashrams that originally celebrated Christmas in 1940s, you know, and he would give the same place to Jesus as he would uh, give to anyone else. And he would sing like this. Here, you know, there's a chant that we do, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. I cannot do satsangs now for a little while, but one time we will do it. So he would say, oh my Jesus, oh Lord Jesus, 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 Father, Father, oh my Mary, Mother Mary, 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 Mother, Mother. He would sing like that. Can you believe it? So beautiful. Because a true master understands that all great incarnations of God, all from all traditions, taught the same principle. Let us remember one thing, that we have the word on one side, which many people are afraid of today, is the word religion. On the other hand, you have the word yoga. What is the difference? None. The word religion comes from a Latin word, religare, which means to reconnect in the same way as our ligaments connect the bones in the body. So re means again. So uh, to connect again is to reconnect, meaning to connect, meaning something that was previously unconnected, now it needs to be again connected. Due to ignorance, we have a so-called an apparent separation between the individual soul, cosmic soul, you may call it any name you like. Now, what the religion's work is to bring that union and make that union take place. Now, that is the traditional meaning of this word. The word yoga, as you know, come from the root yuj, to unite. So to unite, the same thing. The union also is only, the disunion is an apparent thing from the highest of Vedantic point of view, but nevertheless, this is what we have to remember. So every tradition has its own benefits. Unfortunately, it's the humans that tend to, you know, uh, twist and try to accommodate the principles of something which is rather difficult to comprehend in fullness, because you have to have a pure heart to do that. I think the important thing is to protect the teachings also. So part of the reason why Jesus spoke in aphoristic way, one is for the teaching to be protected. The other thing is the certain things he meant were not possible to understand without some form of initiation. Jesus did speak about the subtle bodies and the astral bodies and many things in a very hidden way throughout all the gospels that we have seen. So Jesus was born 2000 years ago, right? And the question is, if he was so powerful, and of course he was, why has the kingdom of God not materialized yet? Why it hasn't come yet to the earth? Why is this earth always like a tumble situation? You know, it's peaceful for 10, 20, 30 years. Then it becomes a ruin. And then it becomes peaceful like this. Of course, this planet Earth has its own special karma to go through, and it has a special place in evolution that we have to uh, understand maybe some other time. Certainly, the wars, the misfortunes, and all these illnesses, everything should have disappeared if people were to follow the teachings of Jesus to a letter. This planet Earth would have become today a heaven in itself. We know this. Whatever he has given was meant for generations to follow and to live a peaceful life, to live a deep spiritual life, and to have the same realization that he had. Right. So this is obviously not to be found. Even at the time when he was crucified, there were elements in the society that were completely dark. But nevertheless, what we need to do is to understand that the Christ represents more of a principle. He needs to be again looked at symbolically rather than historically. We don't need to worry about that. So the Christmas Eve, which is tomorrow, I will remind you all, is the time uh, that appears in a form of very special light, special warmth, and that the Christ should be born within us, and we must prepare ourselves for on the Christmas Eve for that conditions of light to come into our heart. So for little Jesus to take birth in your small heart, which will become big over the time. Yeah, this is what we need to do. Christmas Eve is the reception time. Like, you prepare everything for him. You make some nice food, you honor your guests, then you sing to the Lord, you go to the church, whatever you want to do. And so, unless this Christ is born in us, there's no point in any of these stories that we say, oh, yeah, there will be a better world, for every incarnation of God. But it is the truth is that every incarnation of God is the symbol of the incarnation of goodness and divinity within us. So it is now up to each one of us to have the desire to bring the Lord within, right? To have him born. So the next thing is that there's a very famous saying, which you probably remember, and you know it. It's many times mentioned, and many people don't understand. First of all, people don't even understand what cross means. But today we're not going to talk about it. It's actually not as complicated as people think, but still, many people worship the cross, but they don't know what it is, what it represents. So that becomes like a marketing for the next webinar. But now we can just talk a little bit about something more important. Didn't Jesus say, I am the way, the truth, and the life? So beautifully. Hasn't this saying been misunderstood by so many people, by maybe the representatives even of certain churches or certain people like that? Because what they understood, most of these people, is that only Jesus is the way, and only Jesus is the truth and the life, and everybody else, you're discounted. Now, this doesn't work that way. Okay. So what is the way? What is the truth in the life? Do you think that these three things are they're one after another, or they're three different things? No, these three things represent one and the same thing. Uh, that means that the goal has to be the same as the path leading to it. They cannot be in any uh, uh, kind of a opposite movement, or they cannot be, they have to be in unison. In fact, they have to, the one has to have the seed of the other. So basically, when we give ourselves a goal, to reach this goal, we have to follow a certain path and apply certain methods as to proceed there safely and unhindered. But as I said, in reality, the goal and the method are one and the same. So what this means, when he says, I am the way, Jesus walked on the path, and Jesus wasn't one thing and the path was another. The path that he walked was Jesus. So he was literally merged into that, what we may call the path. So people who follow Jesus also must walk the same path and must themselves become the path. So what does this mean? It's very simple, in fact. It means that if you want to become an embodiment, or if you want to reach a certain goal, that goal, which is an effect also of something which you have to have it in your practices. So let's say I'm a person who lives in New York City, and I like to go and demonstrate for peace, for different groups of people and everything. So I go and I'm really keen. I believe that the only way to gain the peace would be to actually go and demonstrate and live that kind of, bring that awareness. And I'm for it. But the one thing may be missing. Suppose people are for peace, right? But suppose a person who is for peace goes back home, and then what happens is that he or she is angry. He yells at his partner, then kicks the dog, breaks something, and anger. So anger and peace don't go together. So you cannot follow the path of anger and reach the peace. In fact, people who use aggressive and violent methods to attain the peace, they actually believe not in peace, but they believe in those, in fact, in the opposite of it, which is in the violence and those things that they practice. So since each one of us is a lower and higher mind, we have to learn to submit this or transform this lower mind by cajoling it to follow the techniques that lead to the appropriate goal. And we always must tell ourselves that we cannot reach a goal just in our imagination by following something which is contrary to it. We all tried it, but it doesn't work. Right? So what we want to do is to try to align and do everything in our life, align ourselves and do everything in our life that corresponds to the exact nature of what we would like to be. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we often speak about the qualities of a saint or sage or realized person. So in the Gita, when Krishna uses the particular qualities of a sage or saint, he means these are the practices for us, right? So whatever it's a swarupa means the essential nature of something, of, let's say, Jesus, that becomes the sadhana or the spiritual practice for all aspirants. And the way to do this is you just take and write a few practices down, make it into a form of a spiritual diary, and then you start your journey. You start to learn to walk your talk, which is rather the most difficult thing in the world, because we will all love to be saints and we're all attracted by the idea of light and love and all these things. But the journey through to pure love is rather all the journey through the darkness of ego and selfishness and all the things that are done not in the name of light. And yet that is the path. So I believe, Jesus carried the cross, right? So each one of us has been given a cross. The cross can have several meanings. A cross can represent your duty, your dharma, your means of evolution, your commitment that you have made through the divine, but through the action on the earth, right? So there could be a multitudes of things. If you're a parent, you take care of somebody, then you also do something else. Of course, this kind of idea of a dharma that I'm representing in the form of a cross also includes our spiritual commitment. You cannot have a cross without spirituality. It's not just a pure, you know, following your duties and having a listless expression of your on your face. That's not the idea. So, but the cross can also symbolize something else. A cross can also symbolize, meaning in terms of carrying the cross, can symbolize the idea that each person is born with a mix of both, some strengths and some weaknesses. And both of these serve to strengthen the path, to make this path into what it should be. It's a form of a battle because you're fighting the lower mind all the time. And then it becomes, once it's purified, it becomes a pure means of realization. So this is expressed in the scriptures in many different ways, but your own weaknesses are your best teachers. In a sense also that each weakness, it acts to be a profound reminder of where you have to look very carefully not to fall into the pitfalls of Maya or illusion or devil, as it's called in the teachings of Jesus. So the qualities that we carry that they may be problematic are also necessary for our growth. I don't mean work on them and increase them, but use them as a little composting thing that you can add to your little garden of virtues, where you're going to learn to sublimate these qualities gradually. But the first thing that we need to have is a little light. We need the Christmas to light to bring that initiation, and that initiation has to happen by contemplating, the purpose of your life. And then with that light will also, you will be able to see what work you need to do. We cannot see the nature of work you need to do without some light, some initiation, some exposure to spirituality in a deeper, more profound way, not just taking yoga classes, just the first step. But then you have to do more work. So basically, we must learn to commit ourselves to this goal by identifying with the goal. You know, so when you say I am the way, I am the truth, I'm all these things, you have to remember that the goal becomes the method. And that method comprises of all the exercises which enable us to advance, so that one day we can all become one with God and able to say, like Jesus, I and my Father are one, or my Father and I are one. So there's an incredible teachings in Jesus's sayings. Honestly, books could be written. I mean, many books have been written, but from a yogic perspective, I find this rather thrilling how Jesus taught. So now I would cover something, one of his sayings that showed up today in one of the newsletters. I was so happy to see it. Uh, it is about the fact that the Jesus actually spent his missing years in India. Of course, many people say that's not true. Where do you find this? But there are actually certain places, and there's a recognition of the fact that the Jesus in his missing years went to India, and he was doing two things. One, he was teaching. At the same time, he was deepening his realizations at that time. So he would say like this, but I say unto you, I will read it to you. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. What a profound statement, no? I mean, think about it. It may look like it's a superhuman quality to do this, but we see that this is the teaching of Vedanta. How is that the teachings of Vedanta? Of course, we always think of a teacher of Vedanta, but here we think that the whole nature is construed, the whole creation is construed in such a way that everybody works for the benefit of all, right? So the wind blows for the benefit of all. He doesn't think, okay, you know what? I'm not going to blow through New York City now. I'm not interested in it. I'm going to go through Ohio or Nebraska or someplace else. Then we have the sun, right? So when it says the sun uh, um, rise on both on the evil and the good, means that the sun, in its impersonal quality of giving warmth, light, and love, in a sense, gives it to all people equally. The rivers do the same. The trees with all the wealth and abundance of fruits and the land with abundance of vegetables and different things gives the whole creation, whole nature gives abundantly. Why can't the human do it? This is the question. Why are we so small? You know, we keep our best smiles for our beloved, right? We keep our best food for our own tummies. We keep everything that is the best for ourselves. So this shows you two things. We do not have a power of Christ in us. We don't have a power of giving, and we have no power of mercy either. You know how many people, Swami Shivananda always says, do not look for your God in churches, mosques, in any of these places. Your gods are standing naked and alone and dragged on the streets of New York City, and people have nothing to eat and nobody wants to talk to them. They're not just abandoned physically, they're abandoned mentally, emotionally by humanity. Of course, we not need to discuss why these people have ended up there. But think of the time when Jesus lived. What did he do? He went to the places that were troubled, right? He went to the places where the love was missing, where mercy was missing, where judgment was not necessary. Even when they were about to stone the lady, for her, whatever, being with somebody else, when he asked, okay, you people tell me whosoever hasn't committed a sin, you throw the stone first. This is what we need. We need the ultimate form of compassion. We don't need just some small things anymore. This is the problem is that we think that our compassion, our mercy are very strong. We're spiritual people. We take care of nature. We can grow into bigger things. We can grow into Jesus himself. But for that, we need to do just what we need to do right now. On a Christmas Eve, tomorrow night, you prepare. A special guest is arriving. A little light, maybe have some candles, you have some prayers. Do it for some other people who are not able to speak for themselves. They're not able to think for themselves. You want to do this little angel-like work tomorrow, and then on the Christmas day, there will be a beautiful light coming and shining. All kinds of gifts are going to be given to you. The physical gifts only a representation of the virtues and the psychic gifts. People obviously think that we need to spend tons of money on everybody. And I love giving gifts and I love receiving gifts. But I also think when I receive a gift, I receive the love of these people. And when I receive the love of these people, I should also give some of my love to somebody else like this. So it goes in inspirational mode. So let us contemplate this beautiful nature of Jesus. And Swami Shivananda says in one place that the situation in the world is such that if Jesus was born again, he would have bled even more so today. So that bleeding comes in a form of suffering and a love for those who suffer. So we must do whatever we can to protect animals, to protect nature, to protect each other, to uplift one another. right? To try to all rise to some heights that Jesus must have lived in permanently. At least we can try on a single day like Christmas. So this is the story for today from this person talking. So I will now just close with the three Oms. Om, Om, Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.